What do you think you would do if you were kidnapped by a dangerous cartel in a foreign country? In this video, we will explore the inspiring story of American citizens who were taken hostage by an infamous Mexican cartel. We'll take a look at the events leading up to the abduction, the challenges the victims and their families faced, and the strategies they used to secure their freedom. Join us as we jump into the gripping tale of survival and resilience in the face of unimaginable hardship. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more captivating stories just like this one. Let's get started. The kidnapping of 4 Americans and the subsequent murder of 2 of them in the Mexican border city of Matamoros led to the accusation of 5 alleged members of a powerful cartel who now face charges of aggravated kidnapping and murder. The 4 Americans were all native South Carolina residents: Shaheed Woodard, Zindell Brown, Eric Williams, and Latavia Tay McGee. On the morning of March 3, 2023, they crossed the border so McGee could get cosmetic surgery done for much cheaper in the state's southern neighbor. The 4 were then piled into the bed of a pickup truck shortly after their minivan was stopped by a group of gunmen in the middle of Matamoros. Arely Pablo Servando, a Mexican witness, died after being hit by a stray bullet during the kidnapping. The cartel, according to Tamaulipas Governor Americo Villarreal, moved the abducted victims around to several locations in an effort to cause confusion and make rescue efforts more difficult. At one point, the victims were even sent to a medical facility. Security personnel found the missing Americans on March 7, 2023, in El Tecolote, 6.2 miles southeast of Matamoros, where they were originally taken. Brown and Woodard had been killed. McGee had no physical wounds, but Williams had 3 bullet wounds in his leg. Shortly after their discovery, the 2 were escorted to the border and taken to a Texas hospital. They were allegedly being guarded when they were located by a 24-year-old man from Vallehermoso, Tamaulipas, who was arrested and charged for the kidnapping. 5 men with their hands tied were uncovered at the scene of the initial kidnapping in downtown Matamoros early on March 9th. In addition to this, a letter allegedly came from the Grupo Escorpion division of the Gulf Cartel, which named them as the offenders. They wrote apologies to the victims' families on both sides of the border, as well as to the residents of Matamoros for all the trouble. The state prosecution office then filed homicide and aggravated kidnapping charges against these 5 individuals. In response to the tragedy, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina demanded that the drug cartels be added to the list of foreign terrorist organizations. This would either put pressure on the Mexican government to dismantle the cartels or allow American troops to intervene in serious cases like this. The Mexican president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, responded by calling any form of foreign meddling an offense to the people of Mexico, and threatened to launch an information campaign urging Latinos and Mexicans living in the United States to abstain from voting for Republican politicians until they went back on their threats to interfere in Mexican affairs. In contrast to the thousands of other victims involved in forced disappearances from the country whose cases remain unexplained, some opposition lawmakers and human rights advocates voiced outrage at how quickly the missing Americans were found. Basically, they were upset that this group was instantly located, while other people have been missing for months, even years in some cases, with little being done. The U.S. State Department had previously issued a do not travel advisory for Tamaulipas and 5 other Mexican states before the incident due to the danger in these areas. The Texas Department of Public Safety advised residents of the states to stay away from travel to the country during the upcoming spring break holidays, thanks to ongoing drug cartel violence and other criminal activity which rose on March 11th in response to the Matamoros kidnappings. The activity was also heightened after the disappearance of 3 women from Texas in the region during late February. Now, before we go any further, what do you think should be done about drug cartels in Mexico? Let us know what you think in the comments down below, and make sure to subscribe to You So Crazy if you like what you've seen so far. Now let's get back to the news. The kidnapping has raised serious questions about the safety of American citizens traveling to Mexico and the level of control that cartels exert over certain regions of the country. The kidnappers apparently believed the Americans were rival human traffickers, so they held them for 3 days, moving them around to avoid detection. During this time, the Americans were subjected to a range of horrific conditions and sometimes torture, before 2 of them were eventually killed. The incident has also raised concerns about the level of violence and lawlessness that persist in certain parts of Mexico, particularly in relation to overpowering drug cartels. Many are calling for the U.S. government to take a stronger stance against these criminal organizations, which are responsible for a significant amount of violence and crime in Mexico and surrounding regions. The fact that the Americans were apparently targeted in a case of mistaken identity also highlights the dangers of visiting Mexico, particularly for those who may be perceived as a threat or involved in illegal activities. It is important for anyone considering travel to be well aware of the risks involved and to take appropriate safety precautions. The actions of the Gulf Cartel and other organizations have also raised concerns about the extent to which these groups are able to operate without consequence, despite the efforts of law enforcement agencies to combat their activities. The fact that the cartel was able to kidnap and kill Americans and avoid detection for several days suggests that they have a significant level of power and influence over locals in the region. The case also highlights the importance of international cooperation and coordination when combating organized crime. The fact that the U.S. government was able to work with Mexican authorities to find and rescue the surviving Americans is a testament to the effectiveness of cross-border cooperation in cases like this. But there are still several more key lessons that can be drawn from this case. First of all, it highlights the importance of awareness and preparedness when going to areas that may be considered dangerous. While no one can predict or prevent all possible potential risks, taking steps to educate oneself about the situation on the ground, including the nature and scope of criminal activity in the area, can go a long way in decreasing the chances of becoming a victim. Additionally, it's important to take appropriate precautions, like traveling in larger groups, avoiding isolated areas, and being aware of one's surroundings at all times. In particular, the case of the kidnapped Americans shows the dangers of being mistaken for someone else, and the importance of taking steps to avoid looking or acting suspicious. Secondly, the case showcases international cooperation in working together to stop organized crime. The fact that the U.S. government was able to team up with Mexican authorities to rescue the Americans is a testament to the effectiveness of cross-border law enforcement cooperation. However, the fact that the kidnappers were able to avoid detection for so long suggests that there may be room for improvement. Another key consideration is the level of control that cartels exert over certain regions of Mexico. While it is important to acknowledge that many parts of Mexico are safe for tourists, it is also clear that there are riskier areas, particularly those with heavy ties to drug-related violence and criminal activity. This underscores the need for travelers to exercise caution and for local Mexican law enforcement to step up. The case highlights a need for continued efforts to combat organized crime and drug trafficking in Mexico and the wider world. The fact that the Gulf Cartel could carry out such a brazen attack suggests that they hold a significant level of power and influence. This underscores the need for continued efforts to disrupt and dismantle criminal organizations, whether it be through law enforcement cooperation, intelligence sharing, or more extreme measures. Finally, this kidnapping serves as a tragic reminder of the human toll. The 4 Americans who were abducted and the 2 who were murdered were all victims of senselessness and brutality, and their families and loved ones were left to grieve their loss. The case underscores the need for continued efforts to prevent and combat organized crime and drug trafficking, not only to protect individuals and communities, but also to promote a safer and more just world for everyone. Overall, always remember to be cautious while traveling. In unfamiliar areas, you never know what to expect, so be vigilant. The kidnapping and murder of 4 Americans in Matamoros is a tragic reminder of the dangers around cartel-dominated areas of Mexico and the extent to which criminal organizations continue to operate with impunity. It is important for anyone visiting Mexico to be aware of these risks and to take appropriate precautions to ensure everyone's safety. Thank you for tuning in to this heartbreaking story. If you found this video informative and engaging, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date with our latest content. And as always, make sure to share your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on You So Crazy.